So, if you're a founder, a developer, or pretty much anyone building things on the web right now, there's this one big question that's probably been bugging you. In a world where AI can spit out an entire app in seconds, how in the world do you build a business that actually sticks around? I mean, really think about that for a second. You could spend months, maybe even years, getting your product just right. The UI, the user experience, all of it. And then, boom, a new, more powerful AI model drops, and suddenly someone can build a copy of what you did in less than a week. It's a pretty scary thought, right? But that's just the new reality we're all dealing with.
And this whole vulnerability, it actually has a name. It's called the middleware trap. It's what happens when your entire business is basically just a nice-looking interface that makes calls to someone else's API. If that's your game plan, your moat, your competitive advantage, is basically evaporating. But look, it's not all doom and gloom. There is a way forward.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll really dig into this whole one-week moat problem. Then we're going to explore what I'm calling the 5 durable pillars of value, the stuff AI just can't replace. After that, we'll look at what it takes to thrive in the coming agentic web, and we'll wrap it all up with a defensibility audit you can use on your own projects. All right, let's get into the heart of the issue, the collapse of the build layer. For decades, right, the fact that it was just plain hard to build software was a kind of natural defense. Well, that defense it's gone. Production is pretty much becoming free. And if you want to see what that looks like, just look at a platform like Lovable. They're seeing over 100,000 new projects created on their platform. And that's not per year, that's every single day. When the supply of new software is basically infinite, just the act of building it doesn't create lasting value anymore. And this quote just nails the problem perfectly. If your main value is just a pretty UI sitting on top of an AI model that you don't own, your advantage is super fragile. Your moat is only as deep as the time it takes somebody else to describe a similar UI to an AI. And that time frame, it is shrinking fast. So if the act of building has become a commodity, then where does the real value come from? And that brings us to the core of this whole explainer, the 5 durable pillars. These are the layers of value that AI, just by its nature, can't easily copy or create on its own. So here they are: trust, context, distribution, taste, and liability. Now, these aren't product ideas. They're fundamental layers of the internet economy that are actually becoming more valuable as AI gets better. Let's break them down. First up, we have trust. Look, we're walking into a world that's going to be flooded with millions of AI-generated apps, websites, and content. A lot of it will be junk, and some of it will be straight up malicious. In all that chaos, just being able to verify that something is legit becomes incredibly valuable. Think about this for a second. When you're on some random website and you see powered by Stripe at checkout, you're not sitting there thinking about their API integrations. No, you just feel a sense of relief, of security. Stripe, Shopify, the Apple App Store, they aren't just tools. They are trust signals. They act as the routing layer for safe commerce on a web that's getting sketchier by the day. An LLM can't build that reputation. Okay, let's talk about the second pillar, context. An AI model on its own is a general-purpose machine. It's smart, but it doesn't know anything specific. To be really useful, it needs your company's proprietary data, your customer list, your medical history. So the companies that own this context, they own a critical choke point. And what's so smart about this is you see a company like Notion. They know they can't out-train OpenAI, so they don't even try. Instead, their entire strategy is to own your team's knowledge graph, so that any AI model has to go through them. And here's the key takeaway. An AI agent without your context is just a clever chatbot. But an agent with your context, that's like a junior employee ready to get real work done. On to pillar number 3, distribution. So you can generate a new app in seconds. Great. Who's going to see it? When the supply of something becomes infinite, the things that control access and curation become the scarcest, most valuable resources there are. This is the lesson that every second-time founder learns the hard way. First-timers, they often get caught in that field of dreams trap. If you build it, they will come. But it never, ever works that way. The real bottleneck is always distribution, and that means gatekeepers like Google Search and Apple's App Store actually get more powerful, not less, as the flood of AI content rises. All right, pillar number 4 is a little more abstract, but it is so critical. It's taste. When making stuff is basically free, knowing what to make becomes the whole ballgame. This is all about your product strategy, your design choices, your judgment about what's actually worth people's time. I absolutely love this analogy.
Think about when GarageBand came out and made it cheap to record music. All of a sudden, the value wasn't in owning a $1 million studio, it was in having a producer's ear, the taste to know what sounds good. Well, the exact same thing is happening right now in software. Anyone can ship an app in minutes, but that's not the hard part. The hard part is figuring out if anyone actually wants it.
And our final pillar is liability. This might be the most overlooked moat, but it could be the strongest of all. Here's the simple truth. You can't hold an AI legally responsible for anything. You can't sue an algorithm. And that creates this permanent, built-in need for a human in any industry where the stakes are high. In fields like law or finance or medicine, you're not just selling information, you're selling accountability. The human on the hook is the ultimate value proposition. I mean, when an AI-generated legal contract ends up losing you millions in court, yelling, "the AI did it," is not going to be a valid defense. The people and the companies who stand behind the outcomes and take responsibility will always have a defensible business. So, what happens when you start piecing all these pillars together? Well, you start to see the shape of the next version of the internet, the agentic web. This is a future where AI agents are out there working and making transactions for us, and it completely changes the rules of the game.
Let's just look at this shift. On the old web, the human-centric web, the user was, well, a human, and the key to winning was a great user experience. But in the agentic web, your primary user is often going to be another AI. So the moat shifts from having a pretty UI to having a machine-readable utility. How easy is it for an agent to understand and use your service through an API? That is a huge mental shift in how we need to build things.
Which, of course, brings us to the most important question. What does all this mean for you? We can actually boil all these ideas down into a practical roadmap, a defensibility audit you can run on your own work, like right now. Here's how you put this into practice. First, audit your moat. Just ask yourself, if the next big AI model is 10 times better, does that make me more valuable or does it make me obsolete? Second, obsess over distribution. If you can build a first version in a day, spend your time finding customers. Third, you've got to move above the loop. Stop being just a coder and start being a strategist. And finally, you have to deliberately anchor your business in one of those 5 pillars we talked about: trust, context, distribution, taste, or liability. And that really leaves us with this final thought. It's the only question that really matters as you build for what's next. As AI keeps getting exponentially better, are you positioning yourself to ride that wave, to become more valuable with every new model? Or are you at risk of being washed away? The answer, really, all comes down to where you choose to build.